Hello everyone, many thanks for joining this, the second webinar in a series on flood and drought management. My name is Gareth James Lloyd and I'm a Senior Advisor at UNEP-DHI Partnership, United Nations Environment Collaboration Centre in the area of freshwater and environment. It's my job to be your facilitator on this webinar today, and we have Maija Bertule, also of UNEP-DHI, providing technical support. This webinar series is a collaboration involving a number of partners, including the Global Environment Facility, UN Environment, IWA and DHI, and with other valued partners making additional contributions to the content along the way. The overall aim of the series is to give an insight into the role that innovative approaches can play in addressing floods and drought management issues. And in this series you can expect to hear about the latest and evolving tools and methods, as well as experiences in applying them at different scales. Just before moving on with the agenda, I'd like to briefly give you the backstory to this webinar series. Just one second. Much of what you're going to be hearing about is either based upon or inspired by a quite exciting global environment facility project, which is all about developing and disseminating cutting-edge flood and drought management tools that are of generic applicability. And what's being developed by this project is based on specific input from stakeholders in the Volta Basin in West Africa, in Chao Phraya River in Thailand, and from Lake Victoria in East Africa, as well as other experts. Following development and testing, the tools are going to be made freely available online with full instructions and other assistance provided for their application. And if you want to learn more about the project, please check out this link after we're done here, and kindly note not to use the www prefix. The first webinar in this series was all about the use of satellite data for flood and drought management. Today's webinar is going to be focusing on drought, or more on drought, and especially on how new techniques can be used to improve preparedness for and adaptation to these kind of events. Of course, drought is significant due to the severe impacts it can cause across multiple sectors and to livelihoods, and both incidences and the severity of drought situations are increasing, and it's been well documented that this trend is projected to continue in the coming years. The situation is of course exacerbated by increasing demands from a combination of growing populations and general development. As a result, new and improved management tools are needed to help the situation, and of course that's what we're going to be looking at here today, and not least through a couple of country cases. Today we're very pleased to have two expert guests with us who are going to be sharing their knowledge and experiences with us. We're going to begin with a presentation from Dr. Giriraj from the International Water Management Institute, IWMI, on drought monitoring and warning in Sri Lanka. And Dr. Giriraj will be followed by Dr. Sutat from the Hydro and Agro Informatics Institute, otherwise known as HAII, in Thailand. And Dr. Sutat will be talking about drought management in Thailand, as well as flood and drought adaptation at the community level. The final presentation will be my good colleague, Oluf Jessen, and Oluf will be providing an introduction to drought risk management approaches currently being developed and implemented through the project I just referred to earlier. Each presentation is going to take about approximately 10 to 15 minutes, and time permitting, as usual, we plan to allow for 1 to 2 questions immediately after each presentation, with some additional questions at the end. And to you, the participants, just in the on the right-hand side of your screen, if you haven't minimized it, you will see that there's a grey box, and there's an option in there for submitting questions. Please make good use of that box and send some questions to us. Maija will be fielding those questions and sending them on to me, and we'll do our best to cover as many as possible. I also need to remember to tell you that all presentation slides and webinar recordings in this series are going to be made publicly available on YouTube, and you can also access them via the UNEP-DHI.org website within the next few days. Not long after that, you'll also be able to access them via the project website link that I included on my second slide, the previous one. Without further ado, I'd like to ask Maija to pass control over to Dr. Giriraj so he can begin. Dr. Giriraj, please unmute your mic, and whenever you're ready, I'll let you know when we can see your screen. Yes, we can see your screen. We can't hear you yet.
Yeah, are you able to hear now?
Yes, we can hear you now. So if you switch to presentation mode on your PowerPoint, you're ready to go. Thank you.
Yeah. So good afternoon, and in some cases it might be good morning to other friends who are globally participating in this webinar. And first of all, I would like to thank UNEP and DHI for organizing that webinar and inviting International Water Management Institute. And so this today's presentation is all about drought monitoring and how technology like remote sensing can play a vital role in drought risk reduction measures and aspects of how drought information can be useful in planning process on relief and measures related to contingency. Right?
Dr. Giriraj, please excuse me for interrupting. We can see the grey box you have on the right-hand side of your screen, so if you could just minimize that, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is it okay now?
It's good, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, so sorry again, and so we will briefly highlight about the drought monitoring observations what we have in South Asia, but today the presentation is all about focusing the case study in Sri Lanka. I have left the presentation to the organizers, so you can go through my email address and my background. Without much delay, I will skip this slide today. Some of you might know International Water Management Institute. This is an intergovernmental international organization based in headquarters in Sri Lanka, but we have number of offices in Asia and Africa which are highlighted in this slide. And we do more on water management and focus on water variability research related to policy analysis or aspects related to how we can develop business models in topics related to resource recovery. So variety of interdisciplinary team members we are working here, and we are close to 340 members positioned in globally around Asia and Africa. Just to give a background, I hope other presenters will also highlight the definition and the context of how we define drought. Just to start that, definitions around country, there is no common accepted definition of drought, and there is no physical measurement of measuring the drought because it's complex to understand, and it's unlike flood. You have a monitoring measurements like measuring the water level or depth of the floods, or you could do some much more field-based assessment to come up with drought for the case of flood. So it is a multi-causal natural factors, and you know there are different classifications of drought, starting from meteorological drought, hydrological drought, focusing about the social vulnerability drought, and also looking at, last but not least, the agriculture drought. So today our position is largely to analyze about the integration of meteorological information into the agriculture drought. And all we are trying to see how we can come up with efficient information that support for food security monitoring and aspects that are related to integration of regional information. So as such, the South Asia drought monitoring, what we developed is based on the need assessment that was brought out by various country members in South Asia. And just to say also that technology, particularly the satellite data, over the last 30 to 40 years has shown huge potential, not just the pictures of what the vegetation. You could today measure a better rainfall information from satellite as well as the soil moisture. And the other beauty of all this satellite information, they are available globally, so it's free of charge and they can be easily accessible. If you have a good internet and you have a good processing capability, you could able to generate and utilize most of these products. Now, as I said that this program was funded by various multi-donor partners including WMO, GWP, and our in-house partner, that is the Consultative Group of International Agricultural Research. And also now the government is also funding for this particular program. So the goal is to build a climate resilience program and to look into aspects of how we can reduce poverty in a drought affected region in South Asia, and what kind of regional frameworks we can develop that allows automated processing and allows national agencies to, national members or the country states can utilize such information for appropriate decision. And the aspect is not just we are looking at biophysical information, but also looking at how this information can be coordinated well for mitigation effort, tailoring the regional product into a national level. So that's a goal of the South Asia which we developed, and Sri Lanka is one of the countries which is able to benefit from this particular project. And I'm not going more details on the calculation of how we do, what are the data we have used, and I could also share with you, there is a website called dms.imi, or you can just type IMI drought monitor, you will get a website where we have put out a lot of technical information and the methodological challenges what we have developed on this particular project. What you see here is a well-known vegetation index looking at how 15 years of vegetation health looks like and how the current vegetation of a condition of today's or last week of an information of vegetation that's going to change or changing already. So this is satellite data primarily from MODI's satellite. If you are aware of this particular satellite, again they are freely available. So we have used vegetation information, temperature from MODI's data, soil moisture from European ASCAT information, that's a new satellite from European Space Agency with the Copernicus product, and also from the rainfall data varying from TRIM to GPM, data also from GSMAP from Japan. So all this data were used to derive a drought index. So this particular map is just based on the long-term anomaly using the vegetation condition. So what you see from June to November is the changes in the process of the vegetation stress. What you see in the brown patches or the areas where you have dryness that has been mapped from this particular product. It's just an example to reflect here. And for the same year, same month, this is also we can look at how the temperature anomaly is changing here. And likewise, this is about the precipitation. So I already shown you three variables: vegetation, temperature, and rainfall. You could fuse this information and come up with a regression model, and you could generate a product called drought severity information. Now, you could get a lot of pixels of information, and how do you qualify which pixel is drought and which is not drought? So what we did was, in 3 of these countries, we have taken national institutions in India and also in Sri Lanka and also in Bangladesh, where they went with each of these pixels, what we are calling extreme drought, very severe, moderate, or stress, and they went and captured those information in the field. And then these information were further used in our drought index, and then the methodology was altogether improved and finalized, right? So once you go into all this validation, you could also ask historical drought information that are prepared by the governments. So the top map, what you see, is a map prepared by the government of Sri Lanka, where they have provided what is a drought that has been reported for different years. For the same year, we have used the remote sensing data to see whether we were able to predict the drought condition or not. So there was a favorable correlation about the reports that are generated by Sri Lanka Disaster Management and to the IMI drought index what we have developed. And to move on further, we could also go more detailed analysis on a weekly basis. For the last 5 years, we have done this study to quantify how the drought is progressing on a weekly basis. And here the map, what you see below, is for a good year and a bad year drought. Whether are we mapping every year a drought in all those years? So here is a classic example, a major drought reported in 2012, which is captured by our IDSI called Integrated Drought Severity Index, and a moderate drought in 2013 and also 2014, and not much drought in 2015. So we call this is a good year. So you'll see a lot of green means it's a healthy crop fields that has been mapped for the year of 2015, right? So it gives a good evidence of a good year and a bad year. It was able to predict from our drought monitoring system. Now, once you have certain information that is available, you could go at a smaller administrative unit and look for different monsoon season and see that how the drought is increasing, how much percentage of drought severity is reported for a given week. So this kind of information is very practically useful for national agencies, including disaster management, agriculture, irrigation, water resource department. They could utilize this information for better planning what kind of severity or damage might have happened in particular districts like in Polonnaruwa. That's one of the districts in eastern part of Sri Lanka. Now once we have done, we have taken that into an operational platform for the 2015, where you can see that we are processing this product every week, and you see in the middle one what I am showing in the arrow circle. Here you see that not much rainfall reported in the precipitation condition. Later you saw a lot of rain happening in the month of August. So same what you see in our drought index, a lot of stress has been found out. This yellow patch is basically the stress and watch category. But as the rain came, you'll see a lot of vegetation reported from our IDSI as a healthy vegetation. So there is a good correlation between the rainfall, temperature and vegetation condition what we derive to generate the drought severity index. Now what we have done for this month, there is a big drought going on already in Sri Lanka. So the government of Sri Lanka has requested, why don't we publish a bulletin? So what you see is a 2-pager bulletin which we are publishing to Sri Lankan authorities, where we are saying that what is the current season, how the drought is looking, and how much people are affected, which you see in this district-wise people affected, because of monthly-wise drought progression. And the reservoir water level is coming from the irrigation department. They are providing this information. And this is a meteorological department jointly with IWMI. They are providing this anomaly information on rainfall and the percentage declining trend for selected districts. How much deviation of rainfall compared to 15 years to the current season, that is, that is October to December 2016, right? And then using this information, you can provide some kind of an agriculture and food security bulletin, in the sense what kind of production estimates might go down going by the percentage of rainfall deviation. And last but not least, we are also providing the drought forecast information to see that how the coming 2 to 3 weeks, how the drought situation is going to prevail in those districts already where the severity of drought has been reported. So if you look at those early slides, what I presented is about how the methodology we can develop to derive a better drought and how we could validate and see what kind of accuracy it has. Once we have done, we have made it operational last year, and this year we have ensured that the government should utilize such information for aspects related to drought management, and also use this information for appropriate compensation and relief measures to be provided to those farmers or to the local people who are severely affected by drought. So the technology has played a big role in sharing the information, because they may not know all this methodology what we develop. What they want is a simple drought outlook information which is useful for politicians like ministry, agency, who can really convince and say that this is a big drought and this is the kind of compensation we need to be able to provide based on the condition that is determined from this product. Now we have, as I said, that we have this drought monitoring system. You are free to see this website and download the maps or reports. Some pictures are available, and more details about the project is also can be seen from this portal. And with this, I close my presentation here, and if you have any important questions, I will be happy to answer now or at the end of the seminar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Giriraj. It was a very interesting presentation and system you presented there, and it's clearly still evolving. One question to you is, please could you tell us briefly, how can this drought monitoring system be used by the government in drought relief measures?
Yeah, thank you for asking this important question. One of that is it's always difficult to convince state authorities in anywhere in the country to understand and explain them what the remote sensing based drought information is useful. It took really more than 2 to 3 years to convince them on the benefits of how monitoring information is vital for preparedness and also aspects of drought risk reduction measures and ongoing drought. So we were able to prove them mostly from the observations what we get in the field, to ensure that there is a clear evidence from what we get from the field, and also the remote sensing data is really capturing those impact what has been quantified by those officials. So today we have this drought outlook, wherein this was again a request from the government to say that they don't want more technical. What they want is a simple map that explains better knowledge on the status and the severity of the condition and its impact. So we see that now particularly the country in Sri Lanka are convinced to say that these informations are very good, because they could able to periodically see and review the progress of how the situation is there. So on that basis, I would say that it requires really a capacity to ensure that the governments should be able to use it, for which we need to go with the right kind of technology rather than just showing some maps and products.
Okay, but it seems like you're moving very quickly in the right direction. Just before we move on, I have a quick yes-no question for you, and that is vegetative stress, is the vegetative stress indicator enough to measure drought?
I would say that it's not only the factor now to utilize, because people are applying groundwater, people are utilizing some other variable factors. So we need to come up with integrated variables, in, not just only the vegetable. So I would say that my answer is somewhere in the middle.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. I would now like to ask you to mute your mic, please, Dr. Giriraj.
Thank you, Garrett. Can you see my screen and can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. You're good to go.
I will just maximize my screen. 2 seconds. Should be now. Perfect. Thank you, Garrett. My name is Oluf Jessen. I'm from the Water Resource Department at DHI, and I'm located here in Denmark. And I'm also the project manager of the Flood and Drought Management project, which Garrett introduced in the beginning of this session. This presentation I have, it will be a very brief overview presentation of the drought risk management approach which we are trying to implement as part of this project. The presentation is not based on cases, as will be for both the presentation from IWMI, which we just saw, and also the presentation which will come after me from the Hydro and Agri-Informatics Institute, but it will be focusing on the overall concept which we are trying to implement. When looking at drought management, there are two general approaches to drought management. You can either look at the crisis management part, where you react to an already occurred incident, or you can be proactive and focus on the risk management part, which is the part where this project will focus on. And the objective with the risk management part is really to improve the capacity to adapt to future drought events. And in this project we are focusing on the technical aspects of risk management through improved tools for early detection and warning of droughts, and also through improved planning tools which can allow or increase the capacity of decision makers to make proper decisions, which can hopefully increase the adaptation capacity, but also increase the impact and the risk of future drought events. So our objective is to basically to increase the capacity for early detection and of both current and future drought events, and also increase the capacity to deal with the associated impacts or risks. And as I said before, then the way we were intending to do this is by developing some different technical tools which can improve the capacity and the ability to work with droughts. And the end impact which we hope this project might have is to reduce losses, which is also equal to risk in most cases. So to reduce losses within different sectors at both transboundary, national and regional level. We are at the technical level focusing on implementing a risk reduction framework which contains a number of different technical activities or components, and some of these components are already available in the project and some of these components are ongoing. I'll just briefly go through some of these different types of activities and components we have. First of all, that's a baseline assessment, which mainly focuses on drought identification, meaning how to identify in the spatial scale if there's a drought within a specific area. So this requires the access to near real-time data, where we use satellite data mainly, but also access to different types of drought indices, as we just saw from the IWMI presentation. Then drought indices are the main tool for drought identification. Then there's the impact assessment, where we combine the data and the indices and then link that up to different types of impact models or numerical models. It could be crop models or water resource models, which can be used to calculate the impact of current or expected drought events. This could be impact on the crop yield, it could be impact on the hydropower production or water availability, depending on which sector you are focusing on. Then the baseline and the impact assessments then combined into a planning component, where the intention is to increase the ability of decision makers to evaluate different types of investments or interventions, which has the goal of reducing the impact or increasing the adaptation capacity for future drought events. And you can say the output of the planning component is, when we talk about drought, is often a drought action plan. Then the next component is the dissemination of warning of both the impacts but also the outputs of the planning phase. So there's some activities around automatic reports and also operational early warning system, which can produce alerts in case of upcoming drought events, so that the relevant stakeholders or organizations receive alerts on upcoming drought events. And then the last part is implementation and monitoring, where we have an operational near real-time monitoring system, which is based on drought indices again, so that stakeholders at all time can evaluate what is the drought condition. I'll just give a few technical bullets points to some of these areas. First of all, the drought identification. As we saw with the presentations from IWMI, then the drought indices is really the key to evaluate or identify drought impacted areas. And we have in the project a wide range of different types of drought indices which we are evaluating and testing. We are both using indices based on single parameters like vegetation or rainfall, but we're also looking very much into combined or integrated indices, which combines different data sources into a drought assessment or drought status. And the focus moving forward in this project will very much be to evaluate these different types of drought indices in different locations and also connected to different decisions. We have the near real-time data and also the near real-time drought indices, together with different types of seasonal forecasts and climate change information available in a web-based portal, which is running in an operational phase at the moment. It's a beta version we have up and running, where we can provide this data in near real time to stakeholders and decision makers in different transboundary settings around the globe. And just to say that we are only focusing on freely available and global data in this project, so all the outputs from this project will be based on freely available tools and data. Another key aspect in drought risk management is the weather prediction, and we are focusing on, or we are working on producing what we call a seamless weather prediction tool, where the objective is to provide the best possible weather prediction to a stakeholder, depending on the decision or the issue they're looking at, and also the lead time they're looking on. At the moment, we have a seasonal forecast product, and we have a 2-week forecast product in operation, and we are looking at probabilistic forecasts. So we are also trying to include the uncertainty of drought forecasting into the system, as this is very much important for decision makers when they need to evaluate upcoming drought events. Then the last technical bullet I just want to point to is the early warning and detection part, where we combine, you can say, the seasonal forecast and the forecasted drought indices with simulation models. So where the climate forecast and the forecasted drought indices, they can be used to detect where there might be a likely drought impact. Then we can use the simulation models to estimate the impacts and the risks or the losses in connection with this likely and upcoming drought impact. So this could be water resource models, it could be crop models, it could be focusing on impacts on different sectors. So this would really be tailored towards whatever issue the specific stakeholder might have. Then, of course, within this project, then the overall objective is to provide or improve the decision making, and the end provide a better basis for policies, implementation of investments, and so forth. So we see this drought risk management approach fitting in or embedding into a larger decision making approach, where you go from data and information to analysis using modeling or analytical tool or indices, and then it feeds into a decision-making process, where the output is then could be policies or investments and so forth. The last thing I just want to say before I end is the capacity building part, because it's good to have nice technical tools, but in order to have these tools to be sustained and used, then it's really important to have a lot of focus on the capacity building and the awareness part. So this needs to go hand in hand with the technical development of drought management tools. Thank you. This was what I had.
Thanks, Oluf. Very much for that presentation. We appreciate you were trying to cover a lot of ground well, we only gave you a short amount of time, so I would encourage people to take a look at the project website for more detailed information, and of course they're also welcome to contact you at this email address. A couple of quick questions. The first one's probably the most obvious. What's the timeline for the development of this project and this approach, and what's going to be made available outside the project, and when? When can people get their hands on this?
The project ends in around 1 year, a little bit more than 1 year, mid-18. But we are trying to release these tools as we get them developed and verified. At the moment, we have the data portal with all the drought indices and the data available, and soon we will also move to the reporting part and the planning part. So during this year, we will release tools as they get available. But we are getting closer and closer to the phase where we actually need to release a lot of tools within a short time.
So we're looking at within the coming year.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks. And before we move on, just a very quick question: what period would you say that early warning typically covers, or ideally covers?
I mean, normally when you talk about climate forecast, then the skill or the performance of climate forecast really depends on where you are. In some regions, you can forecast the rainfall pattern with higher skill for a longer time, in other places with a shorter time. But normally within a month or 2 months you can say something, but then after that it gets very uncertain. And that's why we are including this probabilistic forecast, so you're actually looking at ensemble outcomes of the climate. And this can then be used to kind of evaluate the uncertainty on the projected drought events. So I think to include the uncertainty is really the key.
Great, thanks for that, Oluf. Please hang around, also Dr. Giriraj, of course, because we hope to be able to come back to you at the end with some additional questions if there's time. If you would both like to unmute your microphones, then I can start asking you a few questions. The first one I would like to ask is to you, Dr. Giriraj. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you. Do you add soil moisture to the composite index?
The slides which was shown to you does not have soil moisture, but we have a separate drought index that uses exclusively the soil moisture data. Because of the spatial and temporal resolution limitation, we have excluded in the current drought index product.
Okay, very good, very good. And while we're on this subject, please could you tell us what is the accuracy of the drought product and what efforts have been made so far in this area?
Yeah, one is that, as I said, that we are looking at methodology of how we can validate this agriculture drought monitor. So what we did in the early 2014 and 2015, each of this month, whenever we have any vegetation health stress is reported from the satellite data, and composite drought index is also giving some level of stress or severe drought, we send the team to go with those locations and take pictures. So the pictures are, and the pictures and as well as a small household survey we usually carry on during the field visit. And these are the documents that try to help us to say whether the remote sensing based drought index is predicting well with the reality. So having done that on season wise for 3 different countries, we are confident that the product can go more than 85% reliable.
Thank you very much for that. Before we move on to Oluf, one last question.
Yeah.
Please could you tell us what are the broad application areas that are envisaged for the future for this drought monitor project? Is it to get more detailed in country or to expand to other regions and countries, or how do you see it?
Yeah, one of that broad, one is, if I just give the example for Sri Lanka, we have a ad hoc approach on usually when there is a drought, people go for field assessment. So in this case, what we say that when we use this drought information, it can be useful for drought prone areas and application related to water resources modeling. It can be also useful for watershed management. It can be also useful for rural development in the way to say that areas where droughts are very severe and vulnerable, governments have to come up with more plans that can mitigate the drought events. And in recently we also had a chat with a few weather insurance companies where they are also looking at, instead of just rainfall data, can we use a drought index information for pricing a product. So there are huge applications that are come in from this product as such. Any drought index is available. So the answer is yes, we have a huge application, but the demand and exploring this product is still not being achieved to a larger scale.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation and clarification. Moving over to you, Oluf, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Garrett. Thanks.
Okay, next question to you. Will there be any license requirements or limitation to the use of the project outputs, so these various tools that we're seeing?
The agreement is for non-commercial use, everything will be freely available, but for commercial use, there will be some kind of, have to be some kind of agreement, but freely available for any non-commercial or government use.
Okay,
thank you. And what is the plan for implementation and testing of the project outcomes?
Actually, as you mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, we are working in these three different basins, the Volta, the Lake Victoria, and the Chao Phraya Basin, and we are working closely together with the key stakeholders in these different basins. And the Hydro and Agro-Informatic Institute in Thailand is one of the key stakeholders, and during the last part of the project where we will have the tools ready, the intention is to try and work as closely with these stakeholders as possible so that we can make sure it gets embedded into real life applications and issues.
Thank you very much, Oluf and Dr. Giriraj. As mentioned, this is the second in a series of webinars that we have planned. The next one, as you can see, is going to be coming up on February the 28th, and that will be on drought early warning and assessment. And in particular, we're going to be focusing on experiences from Ghana. So please mark your calendars already for that one.
Yeah. Thank you.
If you have any burning issues or questions, please could you send an email to Maija, and she will do her best to get back to you as soon as possible. As mentioned, you can also expect the recordings to be up on the website by probably about Monday next week. We're always looking to improve the quality of our work, so we would be very grateful if you could use just a couple of minutes to respond to the feedback survey that will pop up when you close down from here. And of course, finally, please allow me to conclude today's session by thanking the presenters for taking their time to share their knowledge with us. I'd also like to thank Maija for the technical support she's provided, and of course I would also like to thank you, the participants, for taking the time to join in. And last but not least, please allow me to wish you all a very good morning, good afternoon or evening wherever you are. Thank you.